Hey, listeners.
Hey.
This week, we discuss how to ensure that you have deep connection in marriage when you're in the deep end of life. The deep end of life being life is full, the calendar is full, transitions are happening. None of you can relate to that, I'm sure. But how do you make sure in those moments that the fire of your marriage does not get quenched?
Yes, there's some good challenges. Hopefully, we gave some love as well and encouragement. But also, we're just calling you out, guys. Marriage is important. And sometimes you got to say no to some things.
Say no to stopping this episode. Without any further ado, here we are.
Welcome to Slightly Off Script, the marriage show where we remind you that marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun. I'm one of your hosts, Bethany Needham, here with my favorite coach buddy, Andy Needham. Welcome to Audio Only.
Audio only, as we call it, the no pants episode. No, just kidding.
The problem is no one's going to know whether you're lying.
It's a
or
marriage
not.
podcast. It's safe. Just keep it spicy.
I actually really am kind of bummed that I didn't remember this is audio only because I would have put on my
You actually
pajamas.
look amazing.
Yeah, I'm dressed in real clothes right now. All of my real clothes, pants included.
I feel like I caught myself a couple times as we're in this like early fall that I'm in this. I feel like it's the official dad outfit, which is that I'm wearing shorts and a hoodie.
Yes.
I'm like, this is dad mode, 100%.
Fully
You ask
dad
AI
mode.
to create a dad outfit, and that's me right now. So
That hoodie right out of the dryer.
yeah, that's a call back to last week.
Yeah.
We had a fun weekend.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun, but also not too busy, which I enjoy, having some downtime in the midst of the weekend.
Your daughter came home, and we for the famous pizza that we talked about last week, which was fun. So you have a daughter who's now a student teacher.
Yeah. Wild. Not just a student teacher, but high school, which is insane to me.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you were in Algebra 1 at the high school that our daughter is student teaching in, what kind of grade you pulling?
I am failing that class so
Failing?
bad. I don't know if I don't think I failed algebra, but that was not my forte.
I don't think you're failing.
You don't think so?
No, I think you will have parts of the semester where you are failing, but then you will rally and you will get together with the young student teacher and try your hardest.
Yeah.
And there'll be some empathy from the teacher, squeak you over that passing line. It never happened to you in high school or Bible school at all, did it?
Me? First of all, I don't ever remember having student teachers, but
I'm not talking about student teachers. I'm talking about the trajectory of your grade.
yeah. I still am going, I might have failed the class. So who knows? I don't know. But I think she's going to be incredible. I'm excited for her students.
Of course she is.
I do feel like, there's a side where I'm like, she's not that far out of high school. And so I'm just like, I wonder what these freshman boys show up and they're
going to have the same experience as the contractors did when you used to flip houses. They'll be like, oh, we have a nice young
sweet
woman. Like,
Then she's like, do your homework.
drop Thor's hammer.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
no,
good.
I'm pumped for her and definitely had sort of those emotions rise up because truth is like when I have a lot of memories of her when she's little and kind of almost pretending to be teacher, and we have had passing comments about like, oh man, she actually would probably make a good teacher someday, and here we go.
It was cool this week because she texted about her first day of student teaching, and her son is in an internship as well, working for the city that he's going to school in, and that's just kind of fun.
I feel like our kids are like doing the grown-up things, and they're grown up in some ways, but then you're like, oh, these are legitimate like grown-up jobs, and they're doing it.
This past Sunday, I got to preach in a really cool location. I've been able to preach or lead worship in a lot of churches in New England, but there's none like it that I've been at.
Yeah, we had to get there at a certain time to catch the gondola up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, we're at Loon Mountain Ministries. I love my friend Marcus, and you get to meet Marcus wasn't there, but his wife Heidi was, and she was great. And we had a great service, met a lot of people. It was awesome. It was really cool.
Yeah, and so I have to tell this story though, because we're on our way there. We're driving the car. We are listening, kind of editing through our podcast episode, right? And of course, it gets to the whole, which we've actually gotten people responding to the part of last week's episode where you use the term socked in with fog. And so we end up in this debate because I'm like, nobody says that. Like, that's not. And you're like, yes, they do. So we were going back and forth. And my point was, I'm like, that's just not a common phrase. Like, I literally, that's the first time I've ever heard someone use it. And you even asked your phone, and the AI was like, yes, this is a common phrase or whatever. And I was like, this is ridiculous. It's not a common phrase. So then fast forward, we get on the gondola to go up to the top of the mountain. I get to meet Heidi, who is the pastor's wife. We're not in this conversation like 5 minutes, maybe. And she is telling us about the weather because we're like, man, we could not have had a better day. She's like, yeah, it's been like hit or miss because often, and I don't remember what she said, but it's like, basically, she's like, it's often socked in with fog. And you looked at me.
Yes.
And I was like,
She's like, why are you laughing so intensely?
I was like, you gotta be kidding me. What in the world? So I want to state for the record, that is only the second time I've ever heard someone use that phrase. And I'm still holding to, I'm not saying it's not a phrase. I'm just do not think it's a common phrase.
I think why it's front of mind for me is because we live near the Merrimack River. And when I drive to the gym in the morning, we live up on Mountain View Road. So we're up a little bit of elevation. It's often sunny here, but then when I get down close to my gym, it's near the river. And so it's socked in with fog. And so I think that's why it's front of mind for me, because it's a common occurrence. And it's more common this time of year as the temperatures are very cold in the morning, but warm in the middle of the day.
I think I'm just not, I lack vocabulary because I have been in these situations before I've driven through, but that is not, I'm just driving. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's foggy.
It feels like socked in with fog. It sounds like a Canadian thing. Like that would be like the polite way to talk about fog.
Polite. Yeah, I guess I mean, I was homeschooled for a long time, maybe. But no, I've said things that basically just say, oh, it's foggy out. It's very foggy.
Well, as I've been driving in the morning, the other thing that I'm having to navigate again is school buses. And I've started to learn like, oh, if I get here at this time, I can miss the line of cars behind the school bus. But things are rolling. Like every church that we're at right now, it's like launch season, like let's go. And our friends are feeling that. We're feeling that with the change of seasons. And, we're a couple weeks into new routine in some ways. And at the same time, it doesn't feel like we're all the way there. So today we thought we would talk a little bit about how can we maintain marital connection and just sanity
Yeah.
when we are in the middle of the change of seasons, transition. Season could be like physical season, like this is the start of a new academic year. Could be other types of change or transition, or when just things, it feels like there are more plates than there are fingers to spin them.
Yeah.
That never happens to you, right?
Never. I am always, actually. Yeah, I think I was updating my calendar. I'm one of those people who we have a Google Calendar that we share. And then I also have a paper calendar because something for me about writing it down and seeing it is helpful for my brain. And so I was spending some time updating my written calendar and just had one of those moments of like, whoo, it is a packed fall. Like this is the season of just a lot going on. And for us right now, it looks different because we don't have small kids, but it looks like a lot of speaking engagements and conferences and things. But even when our kids were home, this is like school launching, sports seasons kicking off. Like it just seems like for whatever reason, I don't know if this is true everywhere, but at least around where we are, this is an unusually full calendar go time.
When I hear some of our friends describe what their lives look like, it's almost, I don't know if PTSD might be too strong, but I do feel like I remember that where you're just like, it feels like it's just like the cars are just coming in and out of the driveway all the time. And you're just trying to like make it through, and you fall into bed at night exhausted and you get up and you do it again. It can be a grind.
Yeah. And I don't think we necessarily, I mean, we're not experts by any means, but there, as we've been processing through, I think some things have come to mind that were like, these were things we had to think about when the kids were in the house, and even things that we're having to think about now, because we can easily become just two ships passing between work and separate speaking engagements and things that pull us in different directions. So,
Yeah, I think it's important to think about these things when your plate is less full too, because like you said, I think our temptation now, we may have fewer like sort of operational things in the house to do, people that we need to make sure are at a certain place or whatever, but we still have a lot going on. And even how that space gets filled up, because I feel like a lot of life is like spray foam, like it'll just expand to whatever space you give it. So no matter where you're at in life, I think these are important things, good reminders for us to talk about. And so as we were thinking about this, the first thing you just talked about is like just the question of like, what does it look like in this season to be intentional and not just let life happen to you, but to raise intentionality, not perfection, but thoughtfulness. And there may be practices and things that you need to do specific to the space that you're in right now. So
yeah.
what does that mean?
I think for kind of what was in my mind when we were talking about it is oftentimes we know the things that are important. We like if we sit down, most people will be like, "Hey, yeah, my marriage is important. It's important to invest in that. My kids, whatever these things are." But the day to day, if we're not intentional to plan those times of connection with our spouse, then unfortunately, no matter how much we know that it's important, it tends to be the thing that keeps getting pushed out. Like other things kind of crowd in. And I know in my own life, I have to plan ahead. Like, not that it's always going to go the way that I plan, but I am somebody that thinks about my day, like what time I wake up, what did the first couple of hours of my day look like? How do I, what time am I trying to be home by? What do our evenings look like? And if I look at a week, which I tend to take it a week at a time, like what are the first things that you're planning out in your week? Like if you just let the week happen and be like, "Hey, we'll connect when we have free time," then more times than not, that's not gonna happen. Like free time, like you said, the spray foam stuff is gonna fill your time all the way to the end of the week. But what I will often do is look at my week and put those, what are the must, these commitments that I've had, and we'll have these conversations a lot like, "Hey, what does your week look like?" And like today's an example where I know you have a meeting tonight and you're going to be out for this certain amount of time. And so we plan our week around that. So again, not to be like get all spicy right out the door, but in marriage, if we know there's certain nights that one or both of us have to be out, then actually being intentional with intimacy during the week so that you don't accidentally end up going the whole week and you're like, oh, we never got to be intimate because we didn't think it through and we were out late and we were tired and every night was just crash into bed. So, yeah, just thinking ahead, looking at your calendar, being intentional with whether it's a date night, conversation, intimacy, whatever those things are, like planning them into your week, just like you do your workouts or your meals or whatever else.
When our kids got to the age where they were like in youth group or had like aligned commitments, I remember we would have times where one of our practices in that time was we would go to the same restaurant every week. We would order chicken wings, and then we would schedule out, pull out our phones and we would look, okay, what does this week look like? What are, all the different things, like where are we going to find space for each other? What are the games that we need to get or practices we need to get kids to, and all the different commitments. And yeah, because there were times, we oftentimes, our kids were in private schools that were not close to our house. And so it was a lot. And, it would require, like, I'd have to change the time that I would go to the gym and all those kind of things would be a part of that. It doesn't have to be long, but like 20 minutes, if you can find it, of just intentionality as you go into a week can make all the difference in the world. The other thing I would say is being open to doing some things for the short term that may not be your long-term practices. And I think an example of this, and it came up in conversation, we keep mentioning Heidi from Loon Mountain, but they're in the midst of it. They have two kids still at home and they're running a massive ministry with all kinds of moving parts. And she just mentioned, what you could maybe share that, but
Oh, she mentioned one of these meal prep there's
Yeah.
a lot of them out there, right? And we've done this before in
Yeah.
our own marriage where for a season, and it's funny because often I'm not going to name any unless they want us to like promote them. Then
Yeah.
maybe we'll throw your name out there, but it's on them. But in all seriousness, they run these deals sometimes. So sometimes like there are promotions that can make it more affordable than other times. But taking a period of time and maybe it's like, hey, I got 3 kids in soccer, I'm doing all these things. The one thing that I can not necessarily fully take off your plate, but decrease the amount of time I need to spend is by having these meals delivered, knowing dinners are taken care of and we're good, like something like that. Maybe we've mentioned this before, but we've done this with cleaning services before. Like, you know what? Once a week for this chunk of time, we're going to have somebody come in and just help clean the bathrooms, things like that. And again, it's not a forever thing, but like simple things like that that you can find.
I think that oftentimes the thing that keeps us from that is our ego.
Yeah.
Like I like to make really great food from scratch and you like to clean the house. And
Mhm.
so these are things that we actually enjoy doing. And we kind of like, I don't know, I grew up in a house where like we didn't have a lot of resources. So you feel that, and not that these things are all accessible to everyone, but you feel like, oh, I don't know, that feels like something a rich person would do.
Hmm.
You have to balance it. You have to be mindful of your budget. Don't just like put it all on the credit card. I would say another one is just getting groceries delivered. I wish that existed when our kids were little. One, we lived in the middle of nowhere, so it would have been hard. But like, we have a Walmart Plus subscription, and I don't like to do most of our grocery shopping. To be honest with at Walmart, I don't. It's kind of like I call it produce roulette. Uh,
Yeah.
but I will say, like having that option. Sometimes when we're out on the road and we're like driving home, and we have a 2-hour drive home, I can go on my phone and order groceries, and they're sitting at our on the front step by the time we get there. And so I think taking advantage of those type of things is a wise thing to consider. And just with a lot of them, you can do a trial, see if it's helpful, and then always be evaluating. Is it something you want to do for a time or for the long haul?
You know what this makes me think is both of these things, being intentional and even deciding on cleaning services or meal services, is it does need to kind of start at a place when we're looking at our schedules and our calendar where in some ways we need to be honest about
Yes.
the things that we've committed to and honest about maybe there are things that we have committed to that actually need to just be no's. Like we've said yes to things that need to be no's. I think one of the things that can happen is I'm talking about being intentional and setting time for this is obviously for marriage and connection. Well, if I've said yes to so many things that this little piece of time that I've carved out for you, intentional or whatever it is, but I am so
It's just
exhausted.
the leftovers at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yep.
like
Yep.
I just gave you Tuesday night and I can barely keep my eyes open. And it's like one of those things where at that point, like if that's the point we reached, then actually we need to kind of go back a couple of steps
I
here.
can pay someone else to do the grocery shopping, but
There are certain things that you cannot outsource.
and should not.
Should not. Yes, please do not outsource all things.
Like an example in my life when we had 1 or 2 kids at home, I was finishing my master's program, working full time. I love to serve at our local church, and I'm really grateful that they have invited me at times to preach there. And I enjoy it. Like it's a great thing. And I've honestly just now said yes to that again. But for a season, what I had to say to our pastor, and I preach a lot of places, I said, but like I often preach the same messages because we do itinerant ministry. And so I just said, look, I can't take on a lot of commitments right now where it requires all the preparation that I
Mhm.
would love to give to this. And that could be, maybe you're teaching a Sunday school class or a small group or something like that. And it could be something that like, it is absolutely like one of your passions and joys in life. But just because you have to put that on pause for a season or even bound it and be like, hey, I can show up in this space. Maybe you help out a youth group and it's like, hey, I can come and I can be fully present for that 2 hours of youth group. But in this season, I can't do the prep. And so I need to back off on the teaching side or things like that. I don't know if there's other examples you can think like that, but I think just being really, really honest about that is an important thing. And then another thing we talked about before was really being honest about the things that you're doing that you don't actually have to do. Like
Right.
when the school's like, hey, we have this next fundraiser or bake sale or thing. There were times where we were not the most involved parents. Like you don't have to be the president of the PTO.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you're a disengaged parent or you don't care about your kids.
Yeah.
Don't like completely detach from the school, but you don't have to be super mom, super dad.
Yeah. The reality is when you have a family, when we're talking about kids, there are going to be opportunities galore. Like
No shortage.
there's no shortage of things. And I do think like part of the thought here in terms of keeping marriage, like this is guarding your marriage, right? Your marriage can very quickly take a back seat to all of these other commitments. And they're not bad commitments. Like the PTO is not a bad commitment, doing fundraisers or whatever for your school, not a bad commitment. Help coaching your kids'
Yeah.
sports team, not a bad commitment. But for every yes, you are saying a no. And so, really, I guess what the question that I would challenge our listeners to think about is what is getting your no? And like whether you intend it to be or not, I think sometimes, and we've gone through those seasons where we've had to audit the things that we're doing, the things that we've committed to, and been like, you know what? I'm saying yes to all of these things, which look great for our kids. Even some of them might look great externally on our marriage, like all these commitments we're doing to
We
serve
all
and
love hearing that.
host.
How do you do it all? Like, I just don't know how you do
Yeah.
all these things.
But if we're being honest, like,
If that's what we're experiencing, we're out in public and then we come home and we're just fighting with each other. We're at
yeah,
wit's end. And yeah,
then I think to me, that's like the no that you're giving is to your spouse.
yeah.
The no, and whether it's like this is terrible, and I don't mean this crudely, but you might technically be saying yes to them, like, okay, but really everything, like your exhaustion level, you're just disengaged, you're mentally just done. And I do think that's one of those things going into the fall.
Mm.
And I've thought about this because where we've talked about this in our own marriage is working full time and everything else. I've really had to start thinking through in my own life, okay, what are the things that I'm saying yes to that are keeping me in this place of just, I'm exhausted by the time I finally do come home? And how can I start, what things can I say no to? Where do I need to drop boundaries? Sometimes it's not a full no. Sometimes it's as simple as I do this thing and like, actually, I mentioned this and I won't get into details of my job, but there's been things in my job that I have been doing 110% and like, cause I love, like I want to do things with
Take pride in it.
excellence.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be honest, they don't need 110. Like I'm probably the only one that's like, that's amazing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that it's actually okay for some things to pull back and do what needs to be done in order to draw a boundary because I do need to create some more margin.
Hmm.
And so those for me have been some of those things. So if you're like a mom and the bake sale thing, like, hey, we're having a bake sale, whatever. Listen, I would love to be a part of that. To be honest, I don't have time I'm not a baker. I'm going to pretend like I sit bake for, but like I will buy, like I'll buy cookies and drop them off or whatever that
I'll
is.
buy cookies
Like,
from the bake sale or I'll just Venmo $35 to the
yeah,
thing, which probably is going to be more than the brownies I'm going to, so I think that we often will put that. I appreciate you mentioning the work thing too, because I do think there are times when, especially when you love your work, when you take pride in your work, when you think it's on mission, like it is so easy to care about things that really don't actually make as big of a difference in the grand scheme. Like I'm not talking about the core functions of things, but for you, you were mentioning like it was an example about like some sort of attendance protocol. And you're like, at the end of the day, it can operate this way and I don't have to, and I can show up a little later to work. Not later. You are still like the first one in the door. So I don't sound like later. Like
not
not.
today. I was the third.
Oh, okay. I'm proud of you. This is
Thank you.
progress. This is amazing. But those are the kinds of things that I think you have been auditing your own reality and saying, okay, what are the unrealistic expectations that I'm just putting on my own shoulders that aren't necessarily even making a difference at the end
Yeah.
of the day? And sometimes they are things you have to let go of that are making a difference, and that can be difficult as well. But a lot of it is our own expectations of things.
Well, and honestly, not to be rude, but I think when I checked myself, and I would say this, I experienced this and I would venture to say other people, is it your fear of saying no that it's going to make that big of a difference in the actual, like, how it serves other people? Or is actual our fear in saying no is just our own pride,
Yeah.
like what people are going to think about us? Because when I get the 17th request for a food train for someone in a church, which is a great thing and you want to be involved in, is my ordering them takeout or get like, is
Yeah.
that really about, well, it's not as healthy and or is it just that I'm like, I want them to think I'm
Super.
doing,
Yeah.
yeah, the homemade bread and soup and like, these are like those little
Pioneer woman.
things.
No.
Yeah, which I'm not ever. So you're welcome for ordering takeout.
No, that's great. I think these are important real life examples of things that you can do. An area to pay attention to, and I would say this is true of your week and your days, and it's of your work, are your startup and shutdown routines. There were times when things were going crazy and the kids used to make fun of me so much, but like I would lay out the pans for breakfast. I would have everything. Again, I'm a Uber nerd, so I'm just owning that. But what that allowed me to do when like we were shuffling cars around and everything else like that, like is like I really did dial it in. I was like, I could make my entire breakfast in like 7.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that prep mode, I would have been, also bumping into people in the kitchen and all those kinds of things. And then shutdown routines are really key as well. Like we have certain things that we try to make sure before we go to bed that are done. And, some of it's my own neurosis that you've had to adapt to, but like I'll set out my journal in the morning. I'll even put the date on it. I set my Bible to the passage I'm going to read in the morning. I set out, like, I have my office ready to go. So in the morning when I wake up, and we both wake up early, I just got to grab a cup of coffee, which the timer's already set for that, of course, and just kind of go at it. And that little bit of time in the evening, it probably takes me less than 5 minutes to do.
Yeah.
It can be a game changer for the mornings. So any other examples in that space about like startup and shutdown routines?
Yeah, I know a few of my friends that have done this with kids at home is they have aside a time, usually it's after dinner. And it's some of them have called it like the power hour, like they get creative with it.
The hour of power.
Yeah. But essentially it's what you're talking about, but as a team effort, like the
Yes.
entire
Yep.
family. And so they have things that they do every single evening to set themselves up for the next day, because I think the reality is if you are in that season of life where it's kids and everything else, like the busyness oftentimes is coming less from your own schedule, more from your kid's schedule. And it's actually okay, if not great, to involve them in the extra effort it takes to be able to kind of do these things. And what I mean by that is if you've got a kid whose sports schedule or work schedule, whatever it is making a very tight, like, rather than trying to just be a super parent or whatever and like handling all the things so that this kid can do this thing, is actually involve them in the process. And so whether that's at night, hey, this kid's going to clean up this room, or this kid's going to set up for breakfast the next day, like involve them in the meal prep, involve them in the laundry.
Yeah, we were very early to have our kids learn how to do laundry, and
Yeah.
eventually we just said, you're on your own for laundry. If you want clean clothes, you got to wash them.
Yeah.
And who were the kids that were teaching all the other kids at college how to do laundry? I don't know, we did everything right, but they knew how to wash a load of laundry. I was thinking about another little like just tool that we use that's helpful, because in the midst when you run around and everything's going crazy, making sure that like what do you need to pick up. For a long time we had like the paper shopping list on the fridge, but we use just the Apple shopping list reminders app, and our kids even had access to that, and they would add all kinds of ridiculous junk food that they'd want to have. We'd have to weed through that, but that's a nice one too, because like if you run out of razors or whatever, you just throw it on the list, and then whichever one of us has the time to take care of those type of things, it's a good tool. I think it works.
I think that one's nice because it's, again, anything that's a collected effort. Like it's not just one person doing everything. I had time yesterday, so I went and grabbed everything on the list, and being able to kind of share those things is huge.
We'll ping each other and be like, hey, I'm going to the store. If there's anything you want to add, you did that to me yesterday. So that's just another little pro tip. I think the last thing that I want to mention, and we've talked about this before, but I would say like when people ask me about our rhythms in marriage and things that have made the most difference in the hardest times, the hard times, times when we were going through suffering, we might have had a kid in the hospital, times when we were at our absolute threadbare busyness. This is something that we started at 10 years of marriage, and we'll celebrate 23 years of marriage this fall, is that just having something on the long-term calendar, sometimes more than one thing, that is a point where you know that the two of you are just going to get away. And that could be for a full day, a day trip to Boston or something like that. It could be an overnight. And when we were, starting out and didn't have much, we would beg somebody to let us use their Cape house in the off season or whatever it would be. Don't be afraid to ask for help too with those things. I think, you could tell people like, hey, we're just going through a lot with our kids right now. Like it would mean the world, like ask for help. But then, we now are in the practice where every year we go away for at least a week, just the two of us. And we've done that almost every single year for the last 12 years. And for me, especially, I don't know I'd love to hear how you've experienced that, but it just kind of gives us this sense of like, there is an end to this. And that doesn't mean like, just go and ignore all the intentionality, everything we already talked about. But there are times when things will be out of whack. There will be things with to me, rhythm is, it's not about balance, about just holding everything in this perfect tension of like, I have just the right amount of time with my wife and just the right amount of time with my kids, and I work just the right amount of hours. Like there are times when work's going to take over. There'll be times when kids are going to take over. But that pendulum has to swing back, and it doesn't just swing back to the middle. It has to swing back past the middle so that you're giving extra time to your spouse. And that is just something that I'm very, very passionate about. And it's been one of the most helpful things for me.
Yeah. That actually, it's interesting you say that, because that was the thing that came to mind when I think about the times we've gone away, is that oftentimes we think about bringing the pendulum back to the middle, where we're like, okay, we're going to have crazy seasons and then kind of normal seasons. And actually in marriage, I think the greatest commitment that we have made through these years is intentionally swinging that pendulum the other way and having these times that seem,
We're going to be out of balance towards our marriage.
Yeah, like we literally shut out everybody. It's just the two of us. And I have yet to regret one of those trips. And at different times, it has required different levels of sacrifice and commitment. Like even now, we're getting ready to go. I'm working full time, and taking that time off is a different kind of burden than it's been in years past. But again, worth it. Like I know, because we've done this before, we need this. Like it's worth the sacrifice. It's worth whatever we have to do to make this happen. And acknowledging that this is a pendulum swing. Like we literally are going all in on our marriage this week, and unapologetically, because we're guarding and building and fueling this marriage. So
that's great. Well, this episode brings me a lot of gratitude just for, sort of like you've been in the foxhole of the war. It's kind of like reliving some war stories here, and seeing God's faithfulness and the way that he's worked in us. And I'd love to hear from our listeners about other practices or adjustments or things that you do in times when seasons are changing, when things are full, to be able to sustain in that. And I'm grateful.
Yeah, I'm grateful too. And I think for those who are listening and they're kind of in that's their season right now with kids and everything else, I want to encourage you to maybe take some time and audit, look at your schedule, look at the things you're committed to. And yes, it's a season, but we've said this before, it's only a season if there's an end to it. Like putting your marriage on the back burner to try and commit to all these other things, it's going to be not good for your marriage. So make the sacrifices where you need to, say no to the right things. And nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's how marriage can be stupid good and wicked fun.
Well played, sir.
Well played. Well, thanks again for tuning in, everybody. It's been fun getting this new season off, and even the messages that were rolling in this last week, mostly because of my accident.
Mostly because you swore.
No, I did not.
Cusser.
I did not swear. Actually, I will tell you this. Our son called me because he listened to the episode, and he had the Spotify transcription option. Spotify thought I swore, so I had to turn off the transcription because that is not what I said. It did not have it correct. So,
well, it was pretty close.
It was just a verbal flub.
Maybe listeners can vote. Did he or did he not?
All
Let
right.
them decide.
Well, that's all we have for this week. We will see you next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.